I'm hoping we can speak to Mohammed Shafiq from the Ramadan Foundation. Mohammed, can you hear me okay?
Good evening, Ross.
Do you think it's regressive?
Well, no, I think if you're looking at blasphemy laws that were applicable in the 18th or the 19th century, then I think in the 21st century we've got to move on. I think no religion is immune from criticism or challenge, and Islam is no different from that. But what is not acceptable is the demonization of any faith community and the denigration of their religious symbols to a point where it encourages violence or hatred towards a particular community. And so therefore I think there's got to be a real debate about why we have rules and regulations where people understand the boundaries of responsibility.
But how do you decide whether something is promoting violence? I don't understand. I mean, clearly if I say I don't like Muslims, I suggest everyone attacks Muslims, that's very clear cut. But if I just say I don't like Muslims, am I inciting violence?
No, I think that's fine. But for example, Geert Wilders, I defend the right for Geert Wilders to have his say, and I defend the right for him to make his comments. But what is not acceptable is to label Islam as fascism, is to label the Quran as a fascist book, and to the point where you know this sort of fascism and racism is becoming mainstream. The demonization of Muslim has become mainstream in Western societies, and I think that's wrong. I think people of faith should be respected, our symbols should be respected, and yes, we should defend the right of free speech, and that's why the case in Pakistan, which you refer to, the cases in Palestine or anywhere else in the Muslim world, there's got to be an understanding that there's freedom of choice, and there's freedom of expression, and above all, there's freedom of religion.
Does that woman in Pakistan, Mohammed, does that woman in Pakistan deserve to die?
No, she does not. I think she has the right to express her views. I'm a bit skeptical about the particular case because as yet I've not read the details of it. I'm skeptical to the point that she's been victimized because she's a Christian. Sadly, in the Muslim world, there is victimization against Christian communities and against non-Muslim communities. I think that's wrong.
You're right.
And we've got to stand with them people, and we've got to stand and support those people. And that's why I support any Christian community or any member of any faith community around the world, in particular the Muslim world, who's been demonized in this way or been victimized in this way. They should have their day in court, and if they're innocent, they should be released without charge.
Well, we do have a little information on the case in Pakistan. The woman in question is called Asia Bibi. She lives in central Punjab, which is where she's been convicted of blasphemy. As I say, she initially carried a bowl of water, which caused offence to Muslims who live in her village. She was then accused of being rude about the Prophet Muhammad, and it was that which caused her arrest. Paula Shriver, you've been listening to Mohammed Shafiq say we've got to be careful that we don't encourage racism and fascism. Do you not share his concerns?
Well, I appreciate his concerns. I think the tricky part is how do you do that? And when it comes to trying to do it legally, the problem is it simply doesn't work. And in fact, it usually has the reverse effect, which is stifling people's very extremist opinions, and then people tend to become further radicalized. I'm happy to hear him say that he doesn't agree with this penalty, and he appreciates the fact that these laws, which do exist in a number of countries now, are used inordinately, disproportionately against religious minorities. In fact, Pakistan, where this is taking place, Christians and Ahmadiyya make up less than 2% of the population, but they're over half the prosecutions for blasphemy laws, over 900 in the past 10 years. So it's clearly used in a very discriminatory way. One thing that I just want to emphasize, though, it's not just that countries are defending their domestic laws. There is an active campaign by the Organization of the Islamic Conference to create an international global blasphemy law through the UN. So it is something that could potentially, and in some ways already does, reach outside those borders.
Let's give a little information on that. It's called the Defamation of Religions Resolution. It was originally called the Defamation of Islam Resolution. You're right to say it's been put forward by the Organization of Islamic Conference, which represents 57 countries, and it is looking at protecting religious practice and promoting tolerance. Mohammed, do you think this is a good idea, that all religions should get this defence by law from the UN?
I think we've got to go back to a basic principle, and that is this. If we replace all the anti-Muslim remarks and the cartoons and Geert Wilders' comments, the English Defence League here in the UK, the Tea Party in the United States, and their slogans and their rhetoric, and if you replace it with replace the Muslim with the Jews, Do you think that would be acceptable? Do you think Western societies would allow anti-Semitism to be operated openly in our societies? I'm pretty certain certain countries would be passing laws. It seems to be acceptable in the 21st century that Muslims are demonized in this way, and I think that's wrong. And therefore, I think
you ask a question, Mohammed, about how criticism of Jews or Judaism would be treated. We don't have any chance to give Paula and the others a chance to respond. Maybe we can return to that another show next week. Thank you very much to Mohammed Shafiq from the Ramadan Foundation, to Paula Schreifer from Freedom House.